Hi, welcome to Elizabeth Reads. We have A Place Called Perfect, and we are on chapter 31, The Reunion. We'll be fine, Jack piped up on behalf of the orphans. He was looking straight at William. We know how to avoid the Watchers and how to get them worked up. I'll go back to the orphanage and get more recruits. I bet we can cause enough trouble between us to make the Watchers believe there really is an uprising. I'd love to see their faces if they realized it was only an uprising of kids, Violet smiled. We'll make it look like the No Man's Landers are plotting something. We'll run up and down the streets carrying things, breaking windows, causing mayhem and stuff. We'll keep the Watchers busy at the far end of No Man's Land while you lot sneak over the wall to Iris's. And you think you'll be okay? William asked, looking Jack in the eye. We'll be fine, he said confidently. We'll keep them distracted for as long as we can. It'll be fun. They all discussed the plan at length. It was decided the orphans would start causing trouble on the streets of No Man's Land first. Once the Watchers had their hands full, Boy, Violet, William, Merrill, and two of the orphans, Anna and Billy Jr., would set off for Perfect. As dawn was approaching, Jack led the rest of the orphans back to the orphanage to round up more volunteers and start their revolt. William and Merrill readied the Reimaginator for its journey, covering it with a blanket while Boy packed a pillowcase with two specific imaginations and a protection of soft stuffing. Once ready, the group of 6 snuck from Merrill's toy shop. Violet's heart pounded as they turned off the lane onto Forgotten Road. She kept checking over her shoulder, sure they'd be caught. But as Jack had promised, the Watchers were busy at the other end of town. Noise was gradually filling the streets of No Man's Land. She could hear glass breaking and doors banging in the distance. She relaxed a little as they reached the run-down house that Boy used to access the rooftops of No Man's Land. They climbed the rickety stairs until they were all squashed inside the slime-green bathroom. We've got to go out there, Boy said, pointing to the window. Across the rooftops? Merrill asked warily. Boy nodded as William played with the latch on the window. It's not big enough to fit the machine through, he said, turning to the group. We'll have to knock the window out. Violet stood back, shielding the orphans, as Boy, William, and Merrill began to push hard on the frame. Eventually, the wood splintered and cracked until it finally gave way under their assault. Boy climbed out first, followed by William. Then Merrill gently guided the Reimaginator to them as they waited on the slates. He then climbed out to join them. Violet helped the orphans out, and on Boy's instructions, they all clambered across the rooftops to the wall. Boy quickly grabbed the rope, wrapped it round the pillowcase of jars, and lowered them down the wall to the ground. Then he nimbly jumped over the edge and climbed down. He untied the pillowcase and threw the rope back up so Violet and the 2 orphans could descend. Once they were down, William and Merrill lifted the Reimaginator, secured it with the rope, and slowly lowered the machine to the ground. Boy and Violet guided it to safely. Lastly, Merrill, then William lowered themselves down. All a little shaky, they rested by the wall for a moment before checking the coast was clear. Then they headed up Archer's Avenue to Iris's house. Even in the dim dawn light, it was easy to tell William was nervous. Setting down the machine, he turned his back to the group and walked to the door. The others hid in the early morning shadows by the wall. His hand shook as he raised it to knock on the painted wood. Violet's stomach fluttered, but nothing happened. William waited for a while, then knocked again. The click of the latch was magnified in the quiet of the street. Light fell out onto the cobbled road, and William's face was illuminated by the open door. A tiny, heart-wrenching yelp flew from Iris, and her son's tense stance softened in the swiftness of his mother's embrace. Violet's eyes filled with tears. Iris Archer held her son for what seemed an eternity. The others eyed the road nervously, hoping the Watchers would not patrol by. "Ma'am," William said, eventually stepping back, "we need your help." "Oh, I knew something was brewing, William." Iris smiled and invited her ragged guests inside. Surprisingly, she greeted them all by name. Maybe Iris wasn't as mad as everyone said. "I knew you'd do something, Violet," the old woman winked, pouring her a glass of water. "I saw it in your eyes. You have a touch of mischief about you." Violet smiled, taking the comment as a compliment. "I want to thank all of you," Iris said, grabbing her son's hand, "for bringing William back to me." "I am so sorry, ma'am," William stuttered, still shaken. "I should have come to see you sooner, but I couldn't." "I know," Iris replied softly. The room fell into a sober silence. "I knew you'd come back one day," the old woman spoke again, breaking the quiet. "You have the fight. A spirit can be dulled, but it never fully dies." They have macula, William blurted, as though he couldn't hold on to the words. They told me she was dead and it almost killed me. I couldn't bear to try and be happy again, so I gave up the fight. I'm so sorry, ma'am. I should have come to you. I just thought it'd be better for everyone if I stayed away. It's okay, William. You're back now. That's all that matters. Iris looked out past the faces at her table into a place only she could go. So they took macula, she said moments later. I wondered about that. They robbed my life from me, those terrible two. I saw a little of it in them when they were young. They took after their father. But who can predict this of their sons? She looked into William's eyes. When you disappeared and then macula soon after, George and Edward told me you'd both died. I tried not to believe them. I didn't feel it here, you see, she said, pointing to her heart. But part of me died too after that. She looked down at her hands clasped tightly around a glass of water, the white of her knuckles showing strain. I live outside your brother's rules here. They allow me that much. I don't wear their glasses or drink their tea. Sometimes I think it might be easier if they took my imagination. At least then I wouldn't have to live with this guilt. She looked down, ashamed. What guilt? Ma'am, this is not your fault, William said, concerned. It is my fault, William. What George and Edward became, it's all my fault. I loved you too much. I protected you too fiercely when you were young. I had to, but it made them jealous. It was hard on your brothers. I'm a bad mother. No, you're a great mother, William said, reaching for Iris's hand and squeezing it. They sat together in silence. Violet looked at Boy. Somehow it felt wrong to be there. We can stop them, ma'am. That's why we're here, William continued. We can change perfect. We can take back our town. He pulled the blanket from the reimaginator. This will give people back their imaginations, ma'am. Iris stood up, and she seemed stronger, like she'd come back to herself.